Right, I have the location, I have almost perfect conditions, almost. This should be quite an easy shoot. So where am I and what am I doing? Well, I'm not very far from home actually, and I've known about this location for years, but I've never had the conditions that I was looking for. So what am I photographing today? Well, today I'm going to attempt to photograph sand martins, and the sand martins I'm going to try and photograph are actually nesting in the banks of the River Trent. And as I say, this colony has been here for years and years and years, but every time I've attempted to photograph it in the past, it's been really inaccessible because we've had so much rain in sort of early spring and late winter that the Trent has been really high, and the only place to photograph from was on above the bank where the sand martins are nesting, which I didn't really want to do, or across the river on the other side, which is really too far away. So hopefully when I get down here, I'm going to find that the river has receded enough for me to try and get down onto the little bit of the beach there is there and do some photography. Well, here's hoping anyway, and yeah, I'll catch up with you when I get down there. Right, so we're down to the river now, and it's as I suspected. We've got quite a lot of this sandy beach here. I'll just show you behind me, and we'll go down and have a look. Sorry if you get turned into the sun. Actually, it's a little bit higher than I thought, and I think it's probably because the tide's in. So you never have to forget that the River Trent is tidal just here. So yeah, there's plenty of sand martins around. When I was watching from up on the bank there, it's interesting to see that this colony, I don't know whether you can see, there's even holes in the bank here, but I've been watching for about an hour sat up there further across. These are all unoccupied, I think, and that's, I would imagine, because of the danger from predators. So if you look down here, that section there is much more difficult to get to, and I think that is the area that is more populated than here. There's nothing coming into this section on this wall, so I think I'll get set up here somewhere, and then the position of the sun, I'll shoot in that direction, which is, unfortunately for me, into the wind. It's a northeasterly wind, has been for the past sort of week or so, and it doesn't half funnel down the river here. And if you think it's windy inland, when you get down to here on the edge of the river, it does really funnel it down. You can see with the waves that we're getting on the water. So anyway, we'll give it a bash, we'll see what we can do. Right, so I've been photographing the sand martins for a couple of hours now. The river's just starting to drop. The reason I'm keeping my eyes peeled is because we've also got a pair of kingfishers that are feeding across here, and I'm not sure. I initially thought that their nest was across on the other bank because they kept disappearing. The other bank, I don't know whether you can see, as heavily wooded with trees dropping down into the water, and they kept going across there, but then they keep coming back across here, and I have seen them perch here but then also disappear straight into the banking. So I'm wondering whether their nest is actually in amongst the sand martin nest somewhere, which would make sense. And then why I'm seeing them go across there is they're actually dropping off those trees into the water. That's the deep section, and that's where they're catching the fish. So I'm keeping my eyes out here as well for that. Sand martins are quite a challenge, let's put it that way. I have got some shots, but it's not been easy. And I think from sort of all the type martin type, you know, the swallows, the swifts, house martins, of all of them, I think these are the most difficult to photograph for me, especially here in this location. They don't stay on the same track for more than a couple of meters before they've changed direction quite violently. They're all over the place, and it's a real challenge for the autofocus. I had hoped to use the dot sight that I got, if you saw that video I did a while ago, because it's really good normally in this sort of situation. But I think the problem I've got today is that dot sight, what it does, it gives you a wider field of view, which is excellent because you can see the bird more. So if it changes direction, you actually see it change direction. It doesn't go out the viewfinder. But you're never 100% sure whether the camera is actually locked on its autofocus. And I was getting an awful lot of shots where I thought I'd got the bird in the middle, but because they changed direction so much, the camera is constantly catching autofocus, losing autofocus, focusing on something else, focusing on another bird that might be in the edge of the frame when it catches that better. So it is really all over the place. So I've had to dispense with using that. And it is really, really difficult. So I have got some shots, but I've got an awful lot where I've missed. One of the other problems I've got today is the sun's over here, the wind's coming from the opposite direction. So the birds are tending to go up into the wind, and where I'm sat here, I'm sort of on the end of the run where they're turning round. So I'm getting some shots. It would be ideal if I could actually set up in the middle of the bank where they're nesting, but obviously I don't want to do that because that would disturb their nest site, so I'm not going to do that. But what it means is the birds are turning here, and it would be ideal if they were turning 20 yards further downstream. That would mean that I could lock on to them as they're coming towards me, and that headwind is slowing them up a little bit and making them easier to shoot. But hey ho, you can't have everything. So I have got some shots. I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep looking for this kingfisher as well again, and hopefully, yeah, we'll get some more success. But I mean, who could want for anything better than a day like today? As I say, a little less wind would be perfect, but yeah, it's not far off. That's extremely weird. They've all suddenly disappeared. Gone. Literally, there must have been 100 birds here a second ago, and now there's... Oh, hang on. Well, we know why now. Just lock that off. We know why they've disappeared now, and they're coming back. there was a hobby. I'm not 100% surprised because where I'm sat here, the opposite side of the river, there's a load of old gravel pit quarries that are now filled with water with reed beds and stuff. And actually Langford Lowfields, the RSPB site's not far from here either. That's a little bit further down. And I know there's a lot of hobbies there, so I'm not surprised. And obviously the hobbies will feed on sand martins, especially when the young start coming out of the burrows there in the bank. They'll take some of those out, definitely. So obviously checking it out, and it was amazing. They basically went high and then disappeared. Just in an instant they were gone. I think back over the field behind me, and the hobby cruised down the river, and then he's flipped over onto the reed beds over the back there. So yeah, that will be an interesting one to watch. I know they have got young already in here because I've seen the adults coming out with fecal sacs, so they have got youngsters in there already, so it won't be long before they're fledging. And then yeah, we can probably expect more hobbies around this area. Yeah, I'm not getting just what I expected today. It is difficult. And what I was saying about the wind, if you think about it, if the wind was coming from the south rather than the north, the sun is now in the sort of south, in that direction. If the wind was coming from that direction as well, the sand martins would be coming up into the wind towards me, really a lot slower than they are at the minute. And as I say, I can't get into a position to photograph them, so yeah, we'll do the best we can. Well, it's getting quite late in the day now. I've been here about 4.5–5 hours. That was yeah, quite difficult, more difficult than I expected it to be, but at least I was in a better position than I've ever been with the conditions that we've got. So I'm pretty sure out of the thousands of images I must have just taken, I'll have a couple that I'm really happy with. It was really nice to see the kingfisher as well, and I think just by being here I've located a spot where I may be able to get some nice images of the kingfisher across the other side of the river. So that might be a project for next week. Yeah, get covered up on the bank over there, and I've seen a couple of places where the kingfishers seem to like to fish from. So yeah, that could be something that I can do next week. But really nice to see the hobby as well. I didn't expect that. Potentially high up, but not coming down the river like that. So yeah, it was literally as if he was checking out where his next meal ticket was going to be coming from. So yeah, it's a perilous life being a sand martin, and as I say, it's particularly difficult now because the water is so low. You've got a lot of animals that wouldn't normally be able to access those nest holes, potentially can get access now from below. So yeah, it's probably a good idea that this doesn't happen very often. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed making it. As I say, it's one I've been wanting to do for quite a few years, but just hadn't had the conditions. And I'll leave you with some more of the images that I took today. See you next time.